Tristan Tate, who is the brother of the infamous Andrew Tate, who went viral for his straight talking when it came to masculinity. Whether you agree with him or you don't agree with him, both brothers are in prison because certain charges have been levied against them.
My name is Armin Navabi. This is the Secular Jihadists. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get started.
Andrew Tate, as I'm sure you know by now, did accept Islam. He's a new Muslim. His brother, on the other hand, is a Christian, Tristan Tate. As you can see from this tweet, he's a Christian who appreciates the link that Christianity and Islam has, as we're told as Muslims as well, that the Christians are the closest to you. So he is a Christian that appreciates Islam. Of course, now that his brother accepted Islam, I mean, it only makes sense. But as you can see from this tweet, he is looking at the commonalities between the religions, as I think is very important, especially in this day and age where it's not Christianity versus Islam, rather it's theism versus atheism.
Christians and Muslims and other religious conservatives used to fight each other over their ideologies, but now they're getting united against atheism. Glad we could help bring you all together.
And here is another tweet which was quite interesting. When he entered prison, he noticed that Andrew Tate was getting a lot of letters compared to him from his Christian brethren. And finally, the tweet that got some people thinking, has he accepted Islam? Is he gonna accept Islam? And that was when he said he's run out of books and now he has borrowed Andrew Tate's Quran and now he's reading that. Now, I'm not somebody that starts forwarding hearsay, but I did find a credible clip. It's on LBC, which is very famous here in the UK, and the lawyer was asked about them accepting Islam or converting, and here's what she said.
He has converted, or perhaps both of them converted to Islam, have they?
That's my understanding.
It's so funny how many Muslims are celebrating the conversion of Tate brothers to Islam. For us, this is actually an opportunity to expose how anti-woman Islam is. The Tate brothers are famous for their misogyny, so their interest in Islam kind of makes sense. What we can do is highlight how their behavior is in line with Islamic attitude towards women, and by doing that make more people aware of how anti-woman Islam is.
What's also ironic is when Tristan Tate was asked about converting to Islam, he seemed a bit kind of apprehensive.
I would not convert for the reason of getting any kind of material or social benefit. I don't think that's how conversion works. I don't even think you choose to convert. So as for a personal conversion, I will say no, that's probably not coming. It's certainly not coming yet. If it does happen, it will be an organic process.
And this indeed proves that guidance actually comes from God, from Allah. So I actually agree with him on this point.
Listen to what is being said here. I don't even think you choose to convert.
I don't even think you choose to convert.
This indeed proves that guidance actually comes from God.
This indeed proves that guidance actually comes from God, from Allah.
This is a reference to the concept of divine election. It is the claim that is not up to an individual's own will or decision to convert, but rather a result of guidance from God. This means that salvation is only bestowed upon those who have been chosen by God, not based on the individual's own choices. If it's up to God, our choices are irrelevant. Think about this. How is this fair? If it's not based on our choices, then how is it our fault if we are not chosen? How could it be fair for people who haven't been chosen by God to be punished if their individual choices had nothing to do with the result?
I think it's important that those of you that are sitting on the fence, life is not meant to be lived sitting on the fence. Get off the fence and experience life, not just the material aspect but the spiritual aspect. But one thing that I think we need to unpack, and that is the significance of the Quran and what makes the Quran different to the other holy books, because at the end of the day, that's what Tristan Tate is reading. I'm going to try put a link in the description for you to order your free Quran also. So let's jump into this. At the very least, I'm sure you know that the Quran is revealed in the Arabic language, and Arabic is one of the Semitic languages, which means it's related to Hebrew, the language of the Old Testament, and even to Aramaic, which was the language of Jesus. Jesus.
I don't know if you want to mention how related Arabic is to Aramaic. That's not going to work in your favor. In his book, The Syrio-Aramaic Reading of the Quran, Christopher Luxemburg uses linguistic evidence to show that the Quran was originally written in a form of Syrio-Aramaic, not Arabic. And that over time, the original meaning of many of the words and phrases has been lost and distorted, and that many of the apparent contradictions and inconsistencies in the Quran can be explained by a better understanding of the original Syrio-Aramaic language. Basically, if you read the Quran in its original form, it makes a lot more sense, suggesting that the Quran was not written in Arabic. This challenges everything that Muslims believe about the Quran. It completely demolishes the idea that it's a revelation from God. By the way, I'll provide an affiliate link to the book in the description.
Peace be upon him. And secondly, it's such a rich and vast language. I mean, take the word friend. There's like 10 different words for the word friend, yeah? And they have subtle differences. For example, Sadiq. Sadiq is truthfulness and loyalty that can be proven repeatedly. Let's take the word Rafiq. Rafiq is somebody who can offer comfort in difficult times. Let's move on to Wali. Wali is somebody who never leaves your side. And if that's not all, if you look at the classical books, be it Abrahamic faiths, be it Hinduism, Buddhism, the likes, Arabic itself is a live language, which means it can even be accessed today. In fact, it's the 6th most spoken language on the planet.
I don't know if you want to talk about how reliable Arabic is here, because that also is not going to work in your favor. The Quran was originally written with no dots or diacritical marks. This is because the Arabic script at the time did not include these marks. Without these marks, many Arabic letters with different sounds look identical. This leads to ambiguity in the meaning of many words and passages, and has made it very difficult to understand the original intent of the text. If you had the Quran without these marks, you could play around with them and get completely different meanings out of them. This means that Islamic rulers that came 200 years after were able to decide where to put these marks to get the exact meaning that fits their political agenda. But the original text that didn't have these marks could have completely different meanings than what eventually the rulers decided based on where they put the marks. This means that the original Quran that didn't have these marks could have had a completely different intended meaning than what the rulers eventually decided based on how they chose on where to put these marks.
Let's move on to proving that the Quran that we have today is the same Quran that was there at the time of compilation, mate. And this is something that Judaism doesn't claim, Christianity doesn't claim, and preservation of manuscripts is not something that Judaism can prove or Christianity can prove or even that they claim. Muslims and Islam is the only religion that claims out of the Abrahamic and classical faiths, it's the only one that can prove the exact manuscript. In fact, here in the UK, in the University of Birmingham, we have 4 folios of the Quran with 100% accuracy, which has been carbon dated by the University of Oxford.
Muslims have the belief that the Quran has been perfectly preserved ever since its revelation. They regard this preservation as a miracle, proving that Islam is true. However, there are many Islamic accounts that show that the Quran was constantly changed during the early Islamic history. One of the many examples is the Sana'a manuscript, which is one of the oldest Quranic manuscripts. The manuscript has 2 layers of script on one parchment. The lower layer was scraped off, and then the upper layer was written on top of it. Now get this, the lower layer text has many variations from the Quranic script that is used today. But besides all the historic evidence that we have that Quran has changed, not even today, we don't have just one standard Quran in circulation. The Qurans in circulation today have many different variants, and these variants have many differences. The 2 most popular variants in existence today are Hafs and Warsh, each one of these being popular in different parts of the world.
If that's not all, the Quran has been mass memorized in pretty much every family or related family. There's at least one person that has memorized the Quran from cover to cover. It's the only classical mass memorized book. And not only that, we have chains of narration, i.e. we utilize testimony, and it has a much more rigorous system than even used in science today or even in your daily life. And their reliability is scrutinized from where they lived, where they traveled, who they met, who their teachers were, and if they lied and had a good memory or not. The criteria that we use for our chains of narration is fantastic and a miracle in itself, and something which is special to Islam.
Here he's referring to the oral tradition that the Quran relied on for its so-called preservation. The oral tradition is one of the least reliable methods for preservation. The oral tradition involves the recitation and memorization of the Quran by individuals who passed it from one generation to another. The oral tradition is based on hearsay and secondhand information and always leads to errors and variations. Even the slightest variations over time accumulate and distort the original text. It's so ridiculous to suggest that the oral tradition is as reliable as the scientific method. The scientific method involves rigorous testing and verification, while the oral tradition relies on human memory and interpretation.
Alright guys, hope you have benefited. Let's leave it there until next time. Assalamu alaikum.
This has been the Secular Jihadists. My name is Armin Navabi. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.